You've been working on something for months, a project, a proposal, a relationship, an ambition. You've put in the hours and the hard graft, and you've done all the preparation. You've made the effort honestly and with genuine care, and now the outcome depends on something you can't control. A decision made by someone else, a market condition, a piece of timing you had no hand in setting. You're now waiting for someone or something to happen, and the waiting is eating you up inside. Most of us in that position do one of two things. We either obsess over the outcome, running the scenarios, catastrophizing, checking our phone, rehearsing responses to news that hasn't arrived yet, burning energy on a future we can't influence. Or we tell ourselves to stop worrying and then find 30 seconds later that we're worrying again. Neither of those responses is Stoic, and neither of them work. The Stoic response is something different. Not indifference to the outcome, not pretending to be calm while covering simmering anxiety, something that appears to be more demanding, but on closer inspection is actually more liberating. That response is grounded in the single most practically useful and powerful idea in the Stoic tradition. Today we're going to give the dichotomy of control the full explanation it deserves. Welcome back to the Stoic Mind Mechanic. My name is Tim Howell. We've spent time in previous episodes building the foundation, the history, the biography, the architecture of the Stoic system, and its central doctrine of virtue. Today that foundation is hopefully going to pay dividends, because the dichotomy of control is where Stoic philosophy stops being something you understand and starts being something you can actually use. We've met the idea before in the episode on Epictetus, whose book Enchiridion opens with precisely this distinction, but we only touched on it as a biographical and introductory note. Today we're going to give it the masterclass it deserves, full depth, full nuance, and we'll look at some of the practical exercises that take it from being a concept to a daily tool you can really use. Let's begin where Epictetus began. The very first words of the Enchiridion, the first words his student Arrian chose to write, are these: "Some things are in our control and others not. Things in our control are opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever are our own actions. Things not in our control are body, reputation, command, and, in one word, whatever aren't our own actions. The things in our control are by nature free, unrestrained, unhindered, but those not in our control are weak, slavish, restrained, belonging to others." Read that again slowly. That passage is saying several things at once. It's drawing an absolute distinction between two categories of things, not a spectrum, not a matter of degrees, two categories separated by a very clear line. The first category, things that are by nature up to us: opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion. These are the things that belong to the discipline of assent or agreement, the judgments we form, the goals we pursue, the responses we choose. These are ours, completely, reliably and unconditionally our own. The second category, things that aren't up to us: our body, our reputation, our position, other people's actions, the external world in all its forms. These belong, as Epictetus puts it with deliberate provocation, to others. Things up to us, our judgments, desires, aversions, and chosen responses. Things not up to us, our body, reputation, outcomes, and everything in the external world. Here's where the popular version of this teaching stops. Focus on what you can control and let go of what you can't, which is, as far as it goes, quite sound advice. But the simplified version leaves out the bit that most people find most difficult in practice, and that's the enormous middle ground of things that are partially in our control. Consider this: you have an important job interview tomorrow. The interview itself, whether it goes well or not, is not fully in your control. The interviewer's mood, their prior assumptions, other candidates, the chemistry of the room, none of those are yours to control. But the quality of your preparation is in your control. The clarity of your thinking is in your control. How you respond when a question catches you off guard is also in your control. So the interview outcome sits somewhere between the two categories, partially yours and partially not. Or consider a relationship you care about. Whether the other person remains in your life, whether they feel the way you hope they feel, whether things go the way you want them to go, these aren't fully in your control. But the quality of your attention, the honesty of your communication, the effort you invest, the person you are being in the relationship, those are yours to control. The Stoics were fully aware of this middle ground, and their teaching on it is more nuanced than the simple two-category version suggests. The key formulation, drawn from their doctrine of preferred indifference, is this: focus your effort and attention on the things that are up to you within any situation. Hold the external outcome loosely, prefer it, work toward it, but do not stake your well-being on it. In a philosophical sense, the phrase to hold loosely means something like acknowledging the constant possibility you may be wrong and be willing to adapt accordingly. This is sometimes described in modern Stoic literature as the archer's principle. The archer does everything within their power to be the best archer they can be. They train hard and practice their skill, they select the right arrows, they account for the wind, they hold their stance and then release the arrow cleanly. All of that is up to them. However, where the arrow lands, the final few meters of its flight, a gust of wind that arrives at just the wrong moment, that is not. The archer who stakes their entire psychological well-being on where the arrow lands is opening themselves up to be at the mercy of factors they can't control. The archer who has genuinely internalized the dichotomy can release the arrow, knowing that they have done everything they can, and then, whatever happens, wherever that arrow lands, they can take the result without being destroyed by it. This is not a detachment from outcomes. It's a specific, disciplined relationship with outcomes, one that maintains full engagement and full effort while releasing the requirement that the outcome be exactly as you had hoped. This is a key element in modern sports psychology, which we'll deal with in a later episode. So how do you actually apply the dichotomy of control when you're in the situation I described at the beginning of the episode? Waiting on an outcome, anxiety eating you up, unable to stop running and rerunning the possible scenarios. The Stoics developed a three-part practice that I want to tell you about, and each step is distinct and each one earns its place. The first step is the inventory. When anxiety arrives, when you feel the pull of worry about a particular outcome, pause and take an honest inventory. Write it down if you can. Name every element of the situation you are worried about, and then for each one ask a single question. Is this up to me or not up to me? This sounds simple. It isn't. The reason it requires genuine effort is that our minds are very good at presenting things as in our control that aren't, and at presenting things as beyond our control when they aren't. The person who says, "There's nothing I can do about this," about something that actually is within their reach, is making a mistake in one direction, and the person who torments themselves about an outcome they genuinely can't influence is making a mistake in the other. The inventory is honest only if you resist both errors. The second step is the reorientation. So having identified what is not up to you, release it, not suppress it, and don't pretend it doesn't matter, but genuinely reorientate your attention away from it. Direct the energy that was going into anxiety about the outcome toward the thing that is up to you, the quality of your preparation, your effort, your engagement, your response. Marcus Aurelius describes this process in the Meditations as turning toward your own work. He writes in a passage that reads like a direct instruction, "Confine yourself to the present, direct yourself to understanding that which appears, and act accordingly." Confine yourself to the present, not because the future is unimportant, but because the future is where almost all anxiety lies, and the future, by definition, is not here yet. What is here now is your actionable options. That's where your power actually is. The third step is what I call the reserve clause, a Stoic practice so practical that it deserves its own episode, which it's going to get in a future video. But for now, the brief version. Whenever you pursue a goal, append a mental note: I will do this, fate permitting, or I intend to achieve this outcome, God willing. This is not fatalism or weakness. It's the psychological habit of holding your intentions firmly while holding your expectations of outcomes lightly. It prevents the gap between effort and outcome from becoming a source of suffering. So to recap, step 1, take an inventory. Identify what is and what isn't up to you. Step 2, reorientation. Release what is not yours. Invest fully in what is. And step 3, the reserve clause. Pursue goals with full effort, but keep an open mind. Why does the dichotomy of control work? Not just philosophically, but psychologically. What is actually happening in the mind when someone applies it? The short answer is, it interrupts the anxiety-inducing mechanism at source. Anxiety, as modern cognitive psychology understands it, is not primarily a response to a danger. It's a response to a perceived uncontrollability. The research is consistent. The same objective stressor produces dramatically different psychological effects depending on whether the person experiencing it believes they have some degree of control. A painful medical procedure feels less distressing when the patient has been given a control button, even if they never use it. Noise is less stressful when people believe they can stop it, even if they choose not to. The dichotomy of control works because it restores a perception of control, not over the external outcome, which may genuinely be uncertain, but over the thing that is actually more relevant to your psychological state, your own response. Like the archer, you may not be able to determine where the arrow lands, but you can absolutely determine how well you train or the precision with which you draw the bow or how you breathe. And once you've genuinely separated those two things in your mind, the anxiety generated by the uncertainty of the outcome has nowhere to live. This is exactly why Albert Ellis said Epictetus was the main inspiration behind rational emotive behavior therapy. CBT has a technique called catastrophising, where a therapist helps you question whether something you're dreading is actually as terrible as it feels, or whether it only feels that way because you've convinced yourself it's essential to your happiness. This idea comes directly from the Stoic principle that some things are in your control and some aren't. When a patient can honestly answer the question, "And if that happens, will I be okay?" when they realize their sense of well-being doesn't actually depend on the thing they're afraid of, the anxiety around it tends to fade away. The Stoics arrived at this insight not through clinical trials, but through philosophical reasoning and personal practice. 2,000 years of accumulated wisdom, pointing to the same place that modern psychology has independently reached through the scientific method. That convergence is not a coincidence, it's evidence. Before I close, I want to address something that happens consistently when people first encounter the dichotomy of control and apply it incorrectly, because imperfect application of this idea can actually cause harm. The misapplication runs something like this. Someone is in a genuinely difficult situation, a toxic workplace, an unjust system, a relationship that's harming them. They encounter the dichotomy of control and reason as follows: that the situation is not in my control, therefore my job is simply to manage my own response to it and accept what I cannot change. That sounds very stoic. Well, I can tell you it isn't. The dichotomy of control doesn't say accept whatever happens to you and work only on your inner response. It says direct your energy to what is actually yours to influence, and very often what is yours to influence includes speaking up, pushing back, removing yourself from a harmful situation, or working to change an unjust system, or taking courageous action in the world. The Stoics weren't passive. Marcus Aurelius spent 20 years fighting wars. Seneca tried, unsuccessfully but genuinely, to moderate Nero's worst behaviours. Epictetus ran a school that produced people who went out and engaged actively with the world. None of them interpreted the dichotomy as a license to suppress human effort or to be a pacifist. The correct formulation is this: the dichotomy helps you identify where your energy is most wisely directed. Sometimes that means directing it inward towards your own judgments and responses when the external situation genuinely can't be changed. But sometimes it means directing it outward towards the actions and interventions that are genuinely within your reach, precisely because those are the things that are up to you. The dichotomy doesn't counsel passive acceptance of injustice. It counsels strategic clarity about where your effort will actually make a difference. I want to close with something that's not a quotation but an observation I've made while engaging with this material and with the people who first become aware of the dichotomy. The dichotomy of control is the idea that separates people who engage with Stoicism as a philosophy from those who live it as a practice. You can understand the distinction between what is in your control and what is not in about 30 seconds, and you can read the first page of the Enchiridion and grasp it intellectually in a minute. But living it genuinely, consistently, under pressure, in the moments when it costs you something to release the outcome and stay with your own work, that takes a long time. Marcus Aurelius, writing to himself in a military camp after 20 years of philosophical practice, was still reminding himself to confine himself to the present, still finding it necessary to regularly write this reminder in his diary. That's not a counsel of despair. This is advice to be patient. The practice doesn't come fully formed and stay. It's built incrementally through the accumulated small applications, each time you catch yourself burning energy on what is not up to you and redirecting it to what is. Each time, the muscle memory is a little stronger. Your exercise for this episode, as a genuine daily practice, not a one-off reflection, for the next 7 days, whenever you notice an anxiety, frustration or resistance rising, pause and ask this question: is what I am anxious about up to me or not up to me? Not both, one or the other. And whatever the answer is, follow the thread. 7 days, one question. The compound interest on that practice over time is more valuable than anything else this series might offer you. In our next episode, we explore one of the most beautifully counterintuitive practices in the Stoic toolkit, negative visualization. The deliberate, disciplined imagining of loss as a path to gratitude, resilience, and genuine appreciation for what you have. It sounds grim, but I promise you it produces the opposite of grim. We'll look at why. Please like and subscribe if you're finding this series useful, and if you know someone who's burning energy on something they can't control, someone who is waiting on an outcome that's eating them up, this might be just the episode to share with them. In the meantime, keep calm, keep stoic, and I'll see you in the next one.